Hi, this is Shane Starr on a wonderful afternoon here in South Orange County. I'm about to eat a great lunch. I have a few notes, and today's video is inspired by a question I got on my last video. I did a little video about how to improve our lives based on typology, specifically in this case socionics, and I suggested that our id functions were where we can get the biggest cash value for our efforts. So from that video, a friend of my channel, Power Red Bull Typology, asked what's my thoughts on growth versus fixed mindset. And I think that can go in a number of directions depending on where you live, what your focus is, whether we're talking about personal goals or work-related goals, and how can I speak to this and keep in line with my overall flavor of being a typology channel. Here's my answer, and it all starts with honesty, truth. In order to make a distinction between growth mindset and fixed or static mindset, we need to have an accurate and honest idea of where we're at in life. Are we happy with our lives? Are we not happy? To what degree, and where do our strengths and weaknesses come into this state of affairs? Gray areas, opportunities for improvement. So, when I'm thinking of fixed versus growth mindset, some people are happy to stay in a fixed mindset, and I think that's okay. They're just strolling along. Maybe they won the lottery, maybe they're lazy, maybe their mind really isn't on growth. But for those of us who think otherwise, that's where a growth mindset comes in. What does growth mean? Fortunately and unfortunately, growth usually has something to do with change, something to do with developing. To develop is to change. To grow is to change. And for some types, change is difficult because as soon as they change, then they change again, then they change again, and then their life ends up being a string of starting all over all the time, and they never really get anywhere because as soon as they start to go, they're starting all over again. At the other end of the spectrum, you have those of us who are so reluctant to change that they never get out of their shells, they never go anywhere to begin with, and their life ends up being a failure on the grounds that they never, it's not that they regret what they did, rather they regret what they never tried, something they never attempted. So I just wanted to get those thoughts out of the way. So I think when we think of growth versus fixed mindset, the first thing we have to focus on is it requires, in order to be in a growth mindset, you have to believe in the possibility of change. And that sounds so natural for those of us who do, but there are a lot of people who think, Eeyore in Winnie the Pooh comes to mind. There's so many of us who think it doesn't really matter what I do. This is my life. I'm sort of stuck in it. I might as well just keep plodding along. New day, same, fill in the blank, and I think in order to have a growth mindset, you have to believe first that change is you have to believe that change is desirable. And that's not as easy as it sounds, because some people don't want to change. Even in the Bible, when Jesus was about to perform miracles for people, something that's so underrated in the Bible is he always asks them, do you want to be healed? Think about that. Like, there's so much significance in that question, and I think we skip right over it when we read it. Do you want to change? Do you really want to change? Or is this something that someone else suggested to you, or someone else is enforcing upon you? To have a growth mindset, it has to come from your heart. You have to really want to change. And you also have to have the belief or faith that it is possible. So, someone with a growth mindset is going to be of the attitude like, I want to do this, I believe it is possible. Someone else will be like, hey, this is how I am, take it or leave it, and those are the two opposite attitudes. So where do these opportunities for growth come from? And this is where I can bring in typology as an assistant to our efforts here. Opportunities for growth from an MBTI perspective come from the tertiary and inferior functions. So they come from attacking our gray areas or our deficient areas, and that's going to be, we're always not as good at our third function as we think we are. So give yourself an honest look in the mirror, ask yourself about that third function. That'll be your sixth function in socionics, and just say, what are my pluses, what are my minuses, what can I improve here, how do I go about improving my life here? And then the inferior function, which would be your activating function in socionics, the fifth slot. And that would be something that you're even less good at, but that you value. So it's worthwhile to try to make yourself better in that function. Now, when we're talking about our vulnerable function, I think it's maybe a lost cause. I think I need to do more research and think about that one a little more. Is it even worthwhile to try to improve that? Or are your efforts better spent going after a different function? I think we don't need to worry about what we're good at and the things we're really, really terrible at. We just need to either be able to cover up or operate on a very plain level where we get, again, our biggest cash value, so to speak, is in that super id block, or in MBTI, your third and fourth functions, and maybe your role function in the superego block in socionics. That's where you might not value it, but your community values it, the people around you value it, and it might do you well to give a little bit more attention to that. So what do these functions look like in practice? Again, back to our overall theme, how can we, from a typology point of view, move into a growth mindset versus a static, this is what it is mindset? And I would say, going down the list of the functions, for extroverted sensing, SE, I would say take up a new physical hobby, maybe hiking. So that's a great one. Everyone can do it. If you're a professional athlete who's already in tip-top shape, hiking or going on long walks can still help you. Philosophers throughout the ages have touted the benefits of walking and thinking. It can be some other physical thing. If you don't work out, maybe start a workout program. Something physical, something that gets you out in the outdoors, something that gets your mind fixated on the present moment. And it doesn't need to be something overtly physical. It could be something, gardening could count as this. Making toy models, if that's what you're into, or starting a new hobby like picking up a musical instrument, something like that. That will activate your SE and make you better and more practice in that function, which once you get it up there, then you can start playing chess with it, once you start activating that part of your brain, more opportunities will come your way, and those small little tactical victories will turn into a strategic good point in your personality. Moving on, SI. This is something that has made such a huge difference in my life, is just having an overall health and fitness routine, a program, a diet, a way of life. And when you get really tuned in, even when you deviate from it, you're still partly in it. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. I work out every single day without fail. Feel good, work out. Feel bad, work out. Rainy, I work out. Hot, I work out. I work out every morning, no matter what. That's a non-negotiable. I also practice intermittent fasting. It helps. It's made a big difference. I just got my passport renewed a couple days ago, and seeing me in 2015 versus 2025, you would never think I was 10 years older. If anything, I look 10 years younger. It's unbelievable, the difference of just a health and fitness program, what that's made in my life. And it's part of an overall lifestyle. When you try to isolate choices like, I'm not going to drink, or I'm not going to smoke, or I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to do that, and that's all you're focused on, sooner or later you'll fail. When you make it part of an overall way of life, that's when you succeed. I don't drink because that doesn't fit in my plans anymore. I don't skip workouts because whatever beauty there might be in sleeping in a little bit is offset by the amount of shame and feeling of failure that I would experience if I missed a workout or something like that. It might not work for everyone, but even if you're not as military about it as I am, a health and fitness program will help your SI. It'll help you get more in tune with your body. And I honestly can't remember the last time I got sick. I mean, when you practice health and you care about it, it starts caring about you back, and you'll reap the benefits of your work in this area. Next, TE, extroverted thinking. Ways to improve in this area is just to pick up new skills. I think self-improvement books, videos, charts, they can all help you. Like, a huge part of my work as a community relations representative involves work on the computer with multiple systems, from Salesforce, which is a database. A lot of people, I'm sure someone on this channel has to use Salesforce for his or her business, to other complex systems. And instead of just going through the motions, taking that extra step to read through the boring directions step by step and learn how to actually master these things, it connects wires in your brain somehow that makes, like if I had to build a piece of IKEA furniture, it seems like no relation, right? If I had to build a piece of IKEA furniture right now, it would be so much easier for me than it would have been, say, 5 or 10 years ago. Because of the sort of work I do, my mind is practiced in extroverted thinking. It's like a primed athlete in tip-top fighting condition, I'm so in tune with having to figure out protocols and procedures that it just is second nature to me. I can read directions, I can make directions. I've really developed that extroverted thinking well. And you can too, with simply, looking through manuals, looking through self-improvement books, videos, building on yourself. This whole thing about growth versus fixed mindset to me is sort of a TE kind of thing. You might say at the heart of it, it might be a FI kind of thing. I'm not sure, but it's definitely has TE components. So Doing those things will help with your TE. Moving on, TI. Introverted thinking. Exercise your brain. The best thing here is, logic, if you're not a logic kind of person. Simple mental skills. Crossword puzzles are a good thing. Sudoku, it's like crossword puzzles, but it's a little bit more complicated. Playing checkers or chess. Even, things that will get your mind working over time underneath the surface. Things that make you think logically. I think to some extent, even games like playing pool, billiards is helpful for TE, because if you think only tactically, you're going to fail. To succeed, you have to think strategically, 2 or 3 or even more moves ahead. That will help with your TI. Skills and puzzles. Keep your mind sharp. Don't let it start deteriorating, once you're old like me. Keep learning. Keep your brain sharp. That's how to exercise your TI. FE, and this is something I think I need work in, at least from the MBTI perspective. And I think here's where things like meditation, which has never appealed to me, but I know it's helpful and valuable, yoga, things like that. Again, I am not into those things, but regulating our emotions, the way we express our emotions, the way we experience our emotions, learning how to better attach and detach from social situations, social skills, going to social events and actually participating instead of sitting like me with my typology book in the corner, I'm fine, don't worry about me, I'm good. Yes, I'm happy, I'm having a good time, that kind of thing. Step out of your comfort zone, meet people, talk to people, listen to people. People aren't scary, they're not the enemy, and I have to remind myself of that sometimes. When I do go to a social event, I'm almost always in a corner somewhere, unless I'm actually presenting or something like a workshop or something. But to work on your FE, we have to work on our social skills, especially from an MBTI point of view. And if you're going at it from a socionics point of view, it's about expressing your emotions, emotional regulation, knowing when it's appropriate and when it's not appropriate to express yourself. And that can come out in so many different ways. You could be playing tennis, throw your racket after a bad point, pick it back up like it's nothing. Everyone around you is like, dude, are you okay? And you're like, I'm fine, next point, let's go. And everyone's like, I don't know if I even want to play anymore, bro. And you're like, what's the problem? What? So I threw my racket, big deal. I'm not mad, I'm good, don't worry about it. Everyone else is like kind of freaked out. That's an example of poor emotional regulation. It might be natural to you, but it makes everyone around you feel uncomfortable. At the other end of the spectrum, I would say, like me at a family party, it's Thanksgiving, everyone's sharing and singing and interacting, and I'm happy to be there, but I have my phone or I have my book or something in the corner, and it's like I'm by myself and everything around me is like a movie. That I don't think is healthy FE. So to be more healthy at extroverted feeling, I need to mix it up more, get out of my comfort zone, get out of my shell. And you do too if FE is one of the things you need to work on. And that will help you get better at it. Then it'll be more natural. You can introduce yourself, shake someone's hand, and not feel so weird or self-cautious about it. Okay, moving on to FI. Now, from a socionics perspective, you might think I just talked about FI, but no, that was FE. From an MBTI perspective, FI is about something that matters to us, and it's something deeply personal, something deeply individual. And I would say FI, good practice of FI is loving yourself. People with inferior FI or polar FI, both of those positions, they oftentimes they might be selfish in their actions, but they don't even know what makes themselves tick. Good FI is knowing yourself better, learning how to love yourself better, giving yourself what you need. For me, that looks like, in spite of all my diets and workouts and always on the go and always pushing myself, my guilty pleasure, which I do not believe I'm ever going to give up, is a carton of Haagen-Dazs ice cream. I have my go-to favorites: vanilla, strawberry. I love butter pecan, and I love the mint chip too, but mostly vanilla and strawberry. After a hard day's work, everyone else might want to have a drink or something. I just eat that ice cream spoonful by spoonful, feel the cool cream melting in my mouth, and how nice and easy it goes down, and just makes me feel bliss. It's heaven. I really love that. We need those moments. We need those things in our lives. If you haven't found yours, find it and practice it. If you overdo it, it'll become work. It won't be a pleasure anymore. But practice it in moderation. Find something that you do just for you. If not on a daily basis, maybe on a weekly basis, or every payday. If you're a woman, get your nails done or a pedicure or something. If you're a guy, maybe you make yourself, this is something I really enjoy that I've quit doing. I'm going to start it up again. Something that you love, that makes you happy, that is blissfully selfish. That's how to practice your FI. Once you find that inner core of happiness, you'll be able to more aptly radiate that love and joy to others, and your relationships will get better from it. Okay? So that's FI. Explore new ideas, lifestyles, philosophies. Get out of your mental comfort zone. If SE is taking up a new hobby, NE would be finding a new philosophy, something you never considered before. Something, even as a practicing Catholic, I love Stoicism. I read Marcus Aurelius almost every day, and I find much value in his writings, his meditations, his philosophies, and I'll always be a fan of existentialists, even ones who do not agree with my overall philosophy. Some of my favorite existentialists are atheists. I am no atheist, but I still appreciate the beauty in some of their work. It's good to be open-minded to perspectives that are different from your own. It keeps you from being a closed-minded person. It keeps you from being, racist. It keeps you from being old. You want to be open-minded and open to different ways of thinking and doing things. There isn't just one way in the world to live a good, wholesome life. And the better we explore how people have done that throughout history in different times and cultures, the better off and more well-read and happier ultimately you'll be for having knowledge of these things. So for any, explore those new ideas, explore other philosophies, other lifestyles, many of which you may reject, but at least you see the benefit in them. One of the ways I've kept 100% straight edge sober is I don't look at drugs and alcohol like this. I know they're fun. I know they're exciting. I just see the end game as well as the beginning now, and that helps me know that that's not part of my overall strategic mission in life. But I'm not going to just throw it all out and say, oh, you're evil if you do that or something like that. No, I know better. I know from experience you can have a lot of fun with those things. It's just not part of my life at this time. And so the idea here is that you don't have to just swallow everything you read and accept it, but you can take the good from it and learn from it, and then apply that to your own life philosophy, and in so doing make yourself more whole. Okay, last but not least, introverted intuition. And this is where you look at things from a big perspective. What's your life thing? What is your life mission? What are you here for? What are you all about? And once you figure that out, you'd be surprised how many people don't know that. They don't know why they're here. They are just like thrown into the world and don't know where they came from or where they're going. They're just going to try to have a good time day by day while they're here. And maybe that's good enough for some people if you're in a fixed mindset. If you're in a growth mindset, you want to know your theme, your mission. And even more significantly, once you've gotten that, how are you going to achieve this? What are the concrete steps to take to make this theme blossom in your life? Make your vision a reality. Plan your life strategically, not just tactically. Create some daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, 3-year goals, 5-year goals, 10-year goals. Write them down somewhere and look at them from time to time. That will help flex your NI and make you better at that. And if that's a weak spot of yours, you can make it stronger. So again, to have a growth mindset, we want to look at things from a typology perspective. We want to look at those ones that aren't white, perfect, pristine. And I think we can let go of the things, the dark blind spots that we're never really going to get much ground at. Focus on those gray areas, the functions that you're kind of so at that maybe you value, maybe you don't. Like I said, the role function along with the super id would come in well here. Look it up if you don't know what yours is. And then find concrete, tangible steps on those functions to make your life better. For me, it's crucially important to track your progress. This does 2 things. First, it allows you to see your growth, where you are now compared to where you were last week or last month or last year. And it shows you your lack of growth. Like, in spite of my efforts, I'm still kind of so right here. So that's the first thing it does. That allows you to change tactics towards achieving your strategic goal of self-improvement. Secondly, and I think more importantly, tracking your progress just keeps you engaged. It keeps you in the game. It keeps you in the process. Engagement means movement. Movement translates into growth. And I would say the opposite about disengagement leads to stagnation, which ultimately leads to backsliding, which in the end defaults back to a fixed mindset, which I equate with defeat. Keep moving. Right? So in conclusion, the key to having a growth mindset is wanting to have one. And then having faith that a growth mindset and growth achievements are possible. So you have to want it and you have to believe that it's achievable. And then finally, last but not least, you need the discipline to carry out your program. Having a growth mindset isn't an event, it's a lifestyle. I'm going to say that one last time if you got this far. Growth mindset is not an event, it's a lifestyle. All right? Hope this video helps someone out there. That's all I have for today. I'm going to enjoy that beautiful salad I'm looking at now. Peace out.